What's up, everybody? This is Matt from Headwaters Adventure, and today we've got the winner of Wild West Bass Kayak Series and CA Bass Nation over at Pardee, James Croco. What's up, James?
How's it going, Matt?
Good. Another day in paradise, rainy and, cold.
Oh, yeah. We're getting ready to get hammered here pretty quick.
How was the weather conditions over at Pardee?
Sucked. It was miserable. Yeah. It was cold. It was windy. We actually did get some hail, some rain. Some guys had some snow, it sounded like.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was rough.
Good bass fishing weather.
What's that?
Good bass fishing weather.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah. Especially,
So,
March. They should be moving up.
Yeah. It's spring. What's going on?
Right. 45-degree water temp. That's normal for this time of year.
How deep were you catching them?
30 to 60.
Okay, so they're still deep. They're still winter fish.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we got a handful of people watching. I'm going to turn on messages. So if you guys have something to ask or if you're curious about anything, send us a message. But tell us, how'd you do it? What was your game plan? Did you follow your game plan, stumble into them? What happened?
So I went out the Sunday before it went off limits and wanted to check this part of the lake out. And I caught a few. There's some largemouth and smallmouth mixed in this area. And I kind of figured they'd be staying there with how cold it was. It wasn't going to get any warmer during the week. We had weather all week long. So I didn't really check it out at all on Saturday for pre-fish. I wanted to check out some other parts of the lake, try to come up with a secondary game plan if, this one spot didn't play out. So.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure because I found some good stuff on practice day, and I kind of debated if I wanted to make that run. I mean, it was a 5-mile run. It was going to take about an hour for me to get there. And we were launching lines in at the same time. So, wasn't sure if I wanted to burn an hour of my day just traveling. So,
yeah, 2 hours.
We got off the water pretty early on Saturday. I'm sorry. We got off about 11:30. I mean, the wind was ripping. So myself, Shane Jones, and Curtis, we all got off the water. And we went out to lunch and stopped by Hook and got a few things. And, Shane said, hey, man, don't overcomplicate it. And I was just I thought about that Saturday night. I was like, you know what? I am trying to overcomplicate things. Let me just go to that spot I found a week ago, and we'll start there. Worst thing I got to do is work my way back towards the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
So we set off Sunday morning through the wind. I had waves crashing over the bow the whole way there. It was a fun ride.
Hey, James, you got a lot of reverb again. I don't know if you changed any of your settings.
No, I didn't change anything, Matt.
Okay. Well, sorry about that, guys, but we're dealing with some technical difficulties tonight, but we still understand you. There's just a little bit of reverb.
Okay. Yeah, so I got there and kind of set up on the shallower 25 range, 25-foot range of that point I was fishing. Figured I'd try to catch some of the fish moving around the morning and feeding on some reaction. I made one cast of the spinnerbait, and halfway through it, I saw a mark about 80 feet away from me on my Garmin Pan Optics. And it was a big mark, and I was like, you know what, I gotta put the spinnerbait away and go try to get that fish over there. And made the cast over there, and drug it maybe one or two times, and that fish hit. Set the hook, and it's coming. I can feel it coming straight up, and it's 80 feet away from me, and it's coming up. It jumps once, goes back in, jumps again, and every time it jumps, my heart's sinking. Get it up to the kayak, got it in the net, and I just grabbed the line when I had my finally licked the fish, grabbed the lines, and barely moved it. That hook point was
barely in there
on like a little string of skin in the corner of his mouth.
Oh man, but that's the way to start the tournament.
Luckily enough it went the right way. 9 times out of 10 it goes the wrong way. I gotta give a lot of credit to the rod I was using. It has a really, really good tip to it, but plenty of backbone. I think that's, kept that fish pinned for sure.
What rod's that?
That was Stealth Sticks. It's called their booty rod. Super sensitive. It's all carbon fiber. I mean, I was able to feel the bites down that 60-foot range. They're down in 60 feet. I'm making casts, 40 to 80 feet away from me. You can still feel them bite.
So is that on a jig?
Yeah, 3/4 ounce jig.
Okay.
90% of my fish came on the jig. I had 2 I caught on the Dirty Jigs guppy head.
Okay.
And I think both of those I ended up calling out throughout the day.
Nice.
So majority of my fish were all on the jig, 3/4 ounce.
It's always a good day when they're eating the jig.
Oh yeah.
That's funny because oh man, not last time, but the time before when we talked to Greg, I mean he wins with the jig a lot. The jig does a lot of work, especially in tournament situations.
Oh yeah. I mean, it just gets big. It works.
Yeah. So were you fishing points? Like what were you actually targeting out there?
So that was one particular point. It was a really, really long point. I mean, it's probably 200 to 300 feet long. And it was very slow and gradual point, but it went, kind of cut this little spot I was off in two with how far it went out,
Okay.
I targeted all points. I mean, that's where they were loaded on the points. And I caught that one fish, and I know there's more there. I could see him kind of, and I didn't quite put 2 and 2 together on the depth range yet at that point. So I kind of looked around. There's nobody near me. So I was like, okay, it's safe to leave, go kind of hit some of the other spots I found at practice that were in that really close proximity to where I was at.
Were you seeing a lot on the Panoptics?
They're so glued to the bottom. You'd see one here and there. And I kind of give you, or you just kind of see something that look different on the bottom, and you target that, and the next thing you know, something would either be moving or you're looking at a rock and didn't realize you're looking at a rock or something.
Nothing.
So I moved on, caught a couple, I think 2 more. So by about 10:30, I had 3 fish. So it was fairly slow in the morning. Made my way back to that starting spot, but I went out. I realized when I caught those other ones that those bigger fish were down on that 30 to 35 is what I figured at that time. So I went further out on the point, went up, towards the wind blown end of it, and let the wind just kind of drift me over it. As I was drifting and making casts, I was just watching the graph, seeing what was there. And once I got to that 30 to 60 range, I really started dialing in on them, and they were biting.
So what jig were you throwing? Is it one of the Bass Union jigs? I know you like those.
No, it's Dirty Jigs.
Dirty Jigs, okay. That's
Jigs,
right. You're partnered with Dirty Jigs now.
Yeah.
What trailer are you throwing on that?
So I went between a double tail grub and a X Zone muscleback craw.
Is that craw. Does that have a lot of action, or is that kind of a dead action bait?
It's got a little bit more action. I was kind of mixing it up between the two. I went out. I had 3 jigs tied on in the morning, and quite a few swim baits because I mean, they were hitting both of them at practice. It was either
this is what they eat. I'm covering the levels.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I was pretty well dialed in on they're either going to hit a swim bait or they're going to hit a jig. And I was just hoping they were going to hit the jig because it's a lot more fun.
Yeah, for sure. That telltale thunk.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That or mushies. Like there's something wrong. That's not right.
And I don't want to throw. I threw the 2.8 to try to clean up some of the fish in the area, but they were all bigger fish, and I just didn't want to deal with fighting them on a spinning rod. I'd rather just set the hook, get them in the kayak, and measure them. Just be done with it.
For sure. I understand. That's competition.
Yeah, right. So I kind of will set up my drifts, and I drift over certain parts of that point, just kind of breaking it down. And I was catching fish on the wind-blown side. I was catching fish on the other side of the point. I mean, they were pretty well all over in that area.
You say it sounds like you got dialed in between the depth and just the area you're fishing. You were
it was an area. I mean, it was a pattern because they're on points, but it was mainly that area.
Mhm.
And they're loaded in there because it's going in an area where they're going to start spawning at some point or another.
Okay,
So
they're starting to slowly work back towards
they might be.
pockets and stuff.
That's kind of what I was thinking. That was kind of their halfway point. Like, hey, let's hang out here for a while. We got this
pre-spawn staging.
Yeah, we got this giant point right here we can hang out on with all this rock on it. Like, why
Just
not?
waiting
Yeah.
for warmer weather.
Yep, I think
So
so.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I ended up, I think 12 o'clock, we had a really nasty storm rolling in. And the wind shifted from the south and it started coming in at the west. And it was hail, dark clouds. I was thinking, well, here comes a thunderstorm, you know. And the wind picked up real bad. And I kind of looked where I was at, 5 miles away from the ramp, no cell phone service where I'm at. I'm looking around. Probably closest person to me was a quarter to half mile away.
Damn.
And,
yeah, that's not what you want when there's a storm coming.
Right. So I regret it. At the time, I regrettingly packed up and figured I had 89.5 inches at the time.
Mhm.
Like, this is a bag. I don't think I'm going to win it with this bag, but I think I got a good chance to do something with it. So I played it safe, and I was planning on fishing that point until about 2:30.
Mhm.
So I ended up leaving it about after 12 just to get going back the direction of the ramp.
Safely get to the launch, yeah.
Yeah, back towards civilization,
Mhm.
Kind of fished some stuff that I had along the way. Wasn't really finding anything there. I wasn't feeling it. I started, the winds kind of died down pretty quickly, so I started to instantly regret my decision to leave. But I'd already committed to leaving, so it's like I got to fish what's in front of me now.
Mhm.
So I kind of cruise over a spot and finally get cell phone reception. So I get all my fish submitted. And important thing to do is make sure you check your managed catches, because I was submitting fish for the Bass Nation monthly, the Pardee tournament, and the Wild West tournament. So something told me to click, the managed catch deal, and one of my 17 inches didn't submit to Wild West. So I was only showing 4 fish at the time. So I was like, oh, well, I have service. Let me quickly remedy that, get that fish submitted into that tournament as well.
Lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I hardly ever look at that. I really don't. I don't know why I did at that point, but I'll definitely check it from now on.
Yeah, important tips for anybody watching.
Yeah. So we got that, got them submitted. I was kind of sitting on top of the spot I wanted to fish, luckily enough, where I found the service. I caught a 17.25 there on practice day. So I was like, okay. And I caught it and left. I know I got beat up probably pretty hard by the time I showed up at 1:30 or whatever time it was. I got to that spot and I fished it for a little bit. Wasn't feeling it. I'm just making casts at this point. I'm not seeing anything. So I kind of moved along a little ways, and I wasn't feeling the area I was at. I didn't have any confidence in it. I've caught fish there before in the past, last year. It holds fish. I know they're always there, but like I said, I wasn't feeling it, and I kind of looked at another spot where I usually can go over and catch a fish or two off of it. And I cruised over there, and I think about 3 casts in, I get bit. Set the hook, nothing there. Let it fall back to the bottom. Kind of just let it sit there for a minute, and she came back up and hit it again, and that was my final fish of the day, and it was a 1.25 call.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Put me at, that's where I got my 90.75 I had. So that
That's
last
awesome.
fish. Yeah.
I didn't see what anybody else had. I don't know who got second and third. Were people pretty close to you? Was it all around that 90-inch mark?
So Donald Bailey, who fished the Wild West tournament, he had 90.25.
Okay.
So he was, and when I submitted my fish, I had the 89.5 and he had 88. I'm like, man, that's Bailey. I didn't feel comfortable at all. And I think last year it took 94 or 96 inches to win. I think the top three were over 90. I knew it was
That's
fishing a
awesome.
little tougher, that day, but I wasn't feeling too good about going in with even with the 89 and a half and then the low 90s. I didn't think it was
Yeah.
going to do it.
Well, hell, it did it. That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
did.
And first two wins. Is that considered back-to-back wins? Consecutive wins?
Whatever you want to call it, man.
Conjoined wins? Yeah, 2 wins at the same time. That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
First of many this year?
What's that?
First of many this year?
Sure, I hope so, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, that's awesome. I know we still got a few people watching. Anybody have any questions for James while we're still on here? How are you liking those X-Zone baits? Are you throwing quite a bit of those now?
Yeah, that little crawl they have is awesome.
I'm not familiar with that bait.
It's kind of got the flanges like a rage crawl, but it's a little bit more compact,
Okay, I know they're adrenaline craw.
Yeah, I love those. I'm waiting for the Delta event here coming.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully that starts fishing better because that's not fishing.
Those are going to get those are definitely going to get flipped and thrown around on the Delta for sure.
Yeah, everywhere. Well, cool, man. It doesn't seem like we got anybody who wants to interact, but thank you for being on, and thanks for letting us know how you won it. And hopefully in that next tournament you do well again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man.
And for anybody who is watching, we are doing that fishing meetup on March 19th, as long as the weather is conducive to that. So if it's really windy, we will cancel and wait to the next one. But as long as the weather's relatively mild, if it's cool or drizzly, we're still going to go out. If it's windy, we will postpone it. But hopefully some of you can meet us out there. And we'll see you soon, James.
All right, man. Take it easy, man.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, later.
All right, and so before I sign off, I did want to talk. I finally got out this past weekend, and we fished the Sacramento River. I got a drift boat recently, so first chance getting that out with a few of my buddies, and we caught a handful of nice fish. All the people that I've been talking to have been doing pretty well on the river. There are people fishing conventional stuff, casting from shore that I talked to that are catching them on spinners and spoons like little Cleos and Castmasters. So if you have the chance, go out and try to fish. Drift a bead, or you could drift the flies on a slinky rig. What we're catching them on, or at least what I caught them on, was a yellow bead, which is supposed to represent a sucker spawn. So your yellow spinners, anything yellow right now is a really, really good option. The beads, whether they be hard beads or gummy beads, are also a great, great option. But just drift those with a slinky or bouncing Betty, or we're doing it under a bobber. You could do it with a slip float or a fixed. We're doing it fly fishing. So we've got probably 6 feet from our split shot to our strike indicator and or bobber, whatever you'd like to call it. We're running 3 flies just so you can give them the options of what to eat. With the water, it's a little off colored from all the rain and the snow that we've been getting. So having a big fly or something bright as an attractor is a good way to go. I've been running the rubber legs with the bead and a Baetis pattern. So the Baetis is a mayfly that hatches in this less than nice weather that we've been having. So they'll hatch when it's snowing out, they'll hatch when it's rainy, they hatch when it's overcast. So that's a primary forage for them right now. And that's what we caught the majority of our fish on. That's what I see a lot of people catching their fish on right now. The yellow bead, like I said, we did catch fish. There's a handful of options. The trout, sometimes they can be picky, sometimes they're not. But the itty bitty flies, the real small ones, your 18s, 20s, something like that. The one I was using had a little bead head and a little flash of purple in it, which I like. When you're fishing in this overcast weather or this little bit of colored water, you want to have something that silhouettes. Your more natural colors are going to blend in too much. So the purples and blacks and more olive greens, something purples and blacks, yeah, I already said. But those sorts of colors are going to be a lot more visible in the water than your natural colors. They will just blend in. So think about that. The rubber legs we're throwing is black, the beads yellow, so that stands out. And then a real little bugs, which you could, I don't know how they see those in general. I have a little bit of purple with a little bit of sheen in those. So there's lots and lots of options, but you could check out the fly shop. They have tons of different Baetis patterns. They've got the eggs. They've got everything you need there. So if you are interested, the Sacramento River here is just something that is so nice to have access to if you are in town. So utilize it. I mean, you can't keep the fish, but man, the one that I hooked took me all the way to my backing. As soon as I hooked it, it flew 2 feet in the air and went crazy. It was a lot of fun. It's just they're a different type of fish. When they live and fight in that current, you have some really, really powerful fish. And if you live here, go give them a try. It has to be barbless, but you can use bait. You can use spinning. It doesn't have to be flies. You could use pretty much everything as long as it's barbless. Check the regulations. The river is going to close in April. I would need to check the date. I don't remember at what time, but that's from 44 up. 44 down is still going to be fishable, and it's going to be really good fishing. The trout, the first one that I caught, it was spawned out. So the trout are spawning. You could use trout spawn patterns, which is more of the pinkish orangish eggs. But that is another really good option just because all the trout, they're going to eat the eggs, one for sustenance, but they're also going to eat it so that they can take out those genes. Just like the salmon, they really want their offspring to survive and have the best chance, so they take out the other eggs. So if you get the chance, if you're in town, if you're around the American River or any of the other really good trout fisheries, this time of year, your sucker fish are spawning. Your bugs like the Baetis are hatching in the worst weather. And then there's always mayflies and caddis and things like that. So get out there, give it a try. And until next time, guys, stay fishing, my friends. We do have Yak Attack sponsoring some of our fishing meetups. So we're going to get some product from them, as well as I believe Crescent's going to get us some product too for our meetups. So stay tuned. We'll let you know what's going on. And hopefully I'll see you guys out there on the 19th, weather permitting. Have a good night.